Every now and then, a player comes out of nowhere and sets the league on fire. Maybe it's a quarterback who suddenly looks like an MVP, a running back who's running like someone who turned up the sliders in Madden, or a wide receiver racking up huge stat totals every single week. For one magical season, they own the league. And then, as quickly as the magic started, poof, it vanishes, seemingly into thin air. So today, let's take a look back at 15 NFL players who were the biggest one-season wonders that the league has ever seen. Peyton Hillis, RB, Cleveland Browns. Peyton Hillis spent his first 2 years as a relative unknown in Denver, a grinder of a back best suited for keeping depth on the roster. But when he landed in Cleveland, everything changed. He exploded for 1,177 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, and an absurd 61 receptions for 477 yards in 2010. The man was unstoppable, a bruising back who ran like a wrecking ball with soft hands to boot. He became a bit of a fantasy football legend overnight. The hype got so crazy that he won the fan vote to be on the cover of Madden NFL 12, a moment that would go down as the peak of his career. Well, injuries unfortunately hit, his production fell off a cliff, and by 2011, he was a shell of his former self. He bounced around the league for 3 more years, but was never quite the same, tacking on less than 600 yards across the 3. Robert Griffin III, QB, Washington Commanders. Few rookies have ever entered the league in a more electric fashion than Robert Griffin III, especially at the quarterback position. Washington bet the house on him in 2012, trading up to the 2nd overall pick, and early on, well, that looked like a pretty brilliant move. Griffin took the league by storm, throwing for 3,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, and just 5 picks, while adding 815 rushing yards on the ground. He led Washington to the playoffs and won Offensive Rookie of the Year over Andrew Luck. And then, it all came crashing down. He suffered a brutal knee injury and sadly was never quite the same, ending up as an all-time what could have been, and of course, an all-time one-season wonder. Don Magicowski, QB, Green Bay Packers. In 1988, Magicowski lit up the league, leading the NFL with 4,318 passing yards, finishing top 5 by tossing 27 touchdowns, and even giving the Packers a 10-6 record, which was actually somewhat rare at the time. The man wasn't just good, he was must-watch TV, pulling off clutch wins a la Tim Tebow, with fans donning him the Magic Man. Unfortunately for Green Bay, Magicowski never hit that level again. He got paid, got hurt, and lost his starting job just 2 years later. Daniel Jones, QB, New York Giants. Daniel Jones' entire Giants career was a roller coaster, but in 2022, it actually looked like he may have figured it all out. Jones led New York to a 9-6-1 record, the only winning season of his career, and a playoff win. He finished with 3,205 yards and 15 touchdowns to 5 picks, and added over 700 yards on the ground. This all came in Brian Daboll's first season leading the org, and folks thought that perhaps they were building something. But alas, that all came crumbling down in dramatic fashion, as the man was eventually cast out of town in humiliating fashion. Kyle Arrington, CB, New England Patriots. Kyle Arrington led the NFL with 7 interceptions in 2011. 7! The guy was a bona fide ball hawk in the secondary, and a critical part in helping the Patriots go 13-3 and on a nice little playoff run, which is pretty dang stunning, especially when you consider that he finished his 7-year career with just 9 total picks. Yeah, I don't know what black magic Coach Belichick was cooking up that season, but man, it was working. Just a shame that it couldn't continue. Marcus Robinson, WR, Chicago Bears. If you weren't following the NFL in the late 90s, you might not even remember Marcus Robinson. But you know, for one season, the former 4th-round pick of the Chicago Bears looked like the next big thing. In 1999, Robinson torched defenses with 84 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 9 touchdowns. One of the best years for a receiver in Bears history. While that certainly helped him get a nice contract, defenses ultimately adjusted, and Robinson never even came close to that level again, only topping 50 catches and 700 yards one more time in the other 8 years of his career. Terrell Middleton, RB, Green Bay Packers. Terrell Middleton had one great year in Green Bay. One. And if you blinked, you might have missed it. Drafted in the 3rd round by the St. Louis Cardinals in 1977, Middleton ended up in Green Bay, where in 1978, he looked like the next great Packers running back. Over 1,100 yards on the ground, 11 touchdowns. These are the numbers that had fans thinking they had found a star. But, of course, football has a way of humbling you fast. Middleton never came close to that kind of production again. His rushing totals plummeted, his role diminished, and by 1984, he was out of the league entirely. One lone season of brilliance. Then, it was a wrap. He never topped 500 yards again in his NFL career. Josh Norman, CB, Carolina Panthers. Josh Norman's 2015 season was ridiculous. There is no doubting that. 6 forced turnovers, 2 defensive touchdowns, and a level of swagger that made him the talk of the league. He was so good that Washington threw $75 million at him in free agency. But while the man has remained in the zeitgeist in years since, it, quite frankly, has not been for his play. Norman never lived up to the hype. He ran his mouth, got burned constantly, and somehow kept getting paid despite being a liability in coverage. But hey, I guess credit to him for cashing in at the perfect time, because after 2015, he was just another cornerback. LeRon McClain, RB, Baltimore Raven. The best running backs in the NFL don't always start out as stars, and some, like LeRon McClain, get their moment in the spotlight and make the absolute most of it, only for it to disappear just as fast. He rumbled for 902 yards and 10 touchdowns, proving that he wasn't just a blocker, he was a weapon. He bulldozed his way to an All-Pro selection, and suddenly, Baltimore had a new name in the backfield. That is, until McCahee returned and Ray Rice entered the scene. And wouldn't you know it, his time as a featured back was over just like that. Lamont Jordan, RB, Oakland Raiders. For years, Lamont Jordan played the role of a backup to Curtis Martin, a former second-round pick and a clearly talented runner stuck behind a Hall of Famer on the Jets' depth chart. He showed flashes in limited action, but no one really knew what he could do as a starter. That was until 2005, when the Raiders gave him the chance. Jordan backed their trust nicely by racking up 1,025 rushing yards, 70 receptions, and 11 total touchdowns, proving that he could be a workhorse and a threat in the passing game. He was the kind of dual threat back that was just starting to become popular in the league, and it looked like Oakland had found its offensive centerpiece. Unfortunately, he tore his MCL the following season, and he was just never the same after that. In fact, he never rushed for more than 500 yards in a season again. And it wasn't too long after that the Raiders decided to move on. Larry Brown, CB, Dallas Cowboys. Larry Brown didn't just have a good season in 1995, he had the season. One that landed him on the sport's biggest stage with the sport's biggest prize. The Cowboys' defense was stacked, but in Super Bowl 30, it was Brown who made the plays. 2 interceptions, Super Bowl MVP, a parade, a ring, a legacy cemented, and of course, a massive payday. The Raiders did what the Raiders always have seemed to do, and they threw $12.5 million at him, convinced that they were getting an elite corner. Brown, however, lasted just 8 games in Oakland before getting benched and suspended shortly thereafter. In 1998, with his career hanging on by a thread, he found his way back to Dallas, barely clinging to an NFL roster. But alas, the magic of that wondrous one season was nowhere to be found. Patrick Jeffers, WR, Carolina Panthers. If you don't remember Patrick Jeffers, don't worry, you're not alone. He isn't exactly a household name. The guy played 5 seasons in the NFL. Only twice did he suit up for more than 10 games. But for one glorious season in 1999, he was the guy in Carolina, posting a stat line of 63 catches, 1,082 yards, and 12 touchdowns. He was fast, he had great hands, and for that one stretch, he was unstoppable. Panthers fans thought that with him and Muhsin Muhammad, they might have a duo that they could really build around. It's sad to say it, but knee injuries ended up wrecking him. He missed the entire 2000 season, played sparingly in 2001, and was out of the league before most fans even learned his name. Michael Clayton, WR, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When the Buccaneers spent the 15th overall pick on Michael Clayton in 2004, they thought they had a future star. And you know, for a little while, they were right. Clayton's rookie year was everything that you could want from a young wideout. 80 catches, 1,193 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was smooth, physical, and had a knack for making tough catches in traffic. The kind of player defenses immediately had to respect and game plan for. Bucs fans thought that they had finally found the offensive star that the franchise was after. What happened from that point on, though, well, your guess is as good as ours. He was just a shell of himself the following year, failing to surpass the 400-yard mark. And though he managed to stick around until 2011, he never came close to rediscovering the form that he had his rookie year. The man never even sniffed it. Derek Anderson, QB, Cleveland Browns. There weren't exactly high expectations for Derek Anderson entering the NFL as a 6th-round pick in 2005 by Baltimore. He failed to stick there and landed in Cleveland, where he expectedly rode pine for the majority of his tenure. But eventually, he stuck around long enough and sort of a miracle happened. It was 2007, and for a brief moment, Derek Anderson turned into a guy that some thought could potentially develop into a franchise quarterback. People couldn't believe it. After years of turmoil, the Browns had a quarterback who looked legit. Yeah, there were the interceptions, but lest we forget, this is the 2000s Browns we're talking about. And Anderson threw for 3,787 yards, 29 touchdowns, made the Pro Bowl, and even led Cleveland to a 10-6 record, their best in forever. But the next year, that all changed, as Anderson regressed really fast. He threw just 9 touchdowns in 10 games, got benched, and never even came close to hitting the peaks that he hit in that crazy 2007 season. Over the next 11 seasons, he started 31 games total and became just another backup bouncing around the league. So of course, in Cleveland, it was just too good to be true. Steve Sllayton, RB, Houston Texans. There are few college running backs more electric than a young Steve Sllayton. The man was a revelation running alongside quarterback Pat White. Speed, vision, versatility, Sllayton had everything you wanted in a modern running back. And when he fell to the Texans in the 3rd round of the 2008 NFL Draft, it looked like Houston had just stolen a future star. And you know what? There was actually a time where Sllayton looked like a steal for the Texans in 2008. As a rookie, he ran for 1,282 yards, added another 50 catches, and had double-digit touchdowns. The fact of the matter is that the guy seemed like he was Houston's long-term answer at running back. The next season, however, Sllayton just fell off a cliff, finishing with just 437 yards in 11 games, as he dealt with injuries and fumbling issues. By 2010, Sllayton was barely an afterthought in Houston's offense, and the following year, he was cut. And just like that, a player who once looked like one of the league's brightest young stars was completely out of football, which is pretty dang insane, considering how promising the start to his career looked. But which NFL player do you think is the biggest one-season wonder? Who do you think we were right on here? Who do you think we were wrong about? Was there anyone notable that we may have missed? Let us know in the comments section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.